Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really complex and honestly deeply misunderstood condition, fibromyalgia. We're going to look closely at the science, the symptoms, and the lived reality of this condition. Our goal? To spread some absolutely vital awareness and promote genuine understanding for the millions of people navigating this invisible reality every single day.
I want you to really think about this for a second. What if your body was in constant pain, but nobody could see it? Imagine waking up every single day feeling like you've just run a marathon or fought off a really severe flu. Your muscles ache, your joints throb, you are utterly exhausted. Yet, to your friends, your family, and even your doctors, you look perfectly fine. No casts, no bandages, no visible scars whatsoever. That right there is the core conflict of living with an invisible illness like fibromyalgia. It's a relentless daily battle fought entirely under the surface.
Okay, let's dive into this. The double-edged sword of this condition isn't just the physical pain. It's the heavy, exhausting weight of societal skepticism. You know, when an illness doesn't show up on a standard X-ray or a routine blood test, human nature unfortunately tends to doubt it. People living with fibromyalgia frequently face stigma. They're sometimes told they're just stressed, or worse, that it's quote-unquote all in their head. And that is exactly why we're looking at the hard facts today. Because by understanding the actual science behind this condition, we can start replacing that stigma with real empathy.
Section 1, the hidden burden, and a truly frustrating journey.
The diagnostic pathway looks pretty straightforward on paper, right? Well, the reality is anything but. There's no single, simple swab or blood test a doctor can run to say, yep, you have fibromyalgia. Instead, physicians have to rely heavily on reviewing a patient's entire symptom history. Then comes the most agonizing part, ruling out everything else. Doctors have to test for lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid issues, the whole shebang. This process of elimination can take months. Actually, scratch that. Quite often it takes years. For the patient, it's a painful, anxiety-inducing waiting game, seeking medical validation for a very real pain that simply won't show up on standard lab results.
Section 2. The brain's volume knob, or the science of amplified pain.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what's happening in the central nervous system. Think about normal pain processing. You touch a hot stove, your nerves send a warning signal, and boom, you feel pain. Makes sense. But with fibromyalgia, researchers believe nerves are affected in a way that actually changes the brain and spinal cord. We see an irregular rise in the levels of certain brain chemicals that signal pain. Plus, the brain's pain receptors seem to develop a sort of memory of the pain, becoming highly sensitized. It's like someone cranked the volume knob all the way up. They start overreacting, not just to painful signals, but to non-painful signals too. So sensations that normally wouldn't hurt at all are suddenly amplified into severe pain. It is a very real, very physical neurological response. No way around it.
Section 3, Beyond the Aches, looking at the widespread symptoms.
So, the number 3 is absolutely crucial here. To even be diagnosed with fibromyalgia, the baseline symptom is widespread pain, usually described as a constant, dull ache. But it has to last for at least 3 months. It also has to be genuinely widespread, meaning it happens on both sides of the body, plus above and below the waist. We're not talking about a sore shoulder from sleeping funny. This is a comprehensive, full-body pain that literally just doesn't quit. Now, imagine carrying that full-body ache right into bed. A major symptom is waking up completely exhausted, even if you've supposedly slept for a solid chunk of time. Patients will often describe going to bed early, sleeping for 9 hours, and waking up feeling like they haven't slept a wink. Why? Because the persistent pain actively disrupts those deep, restorative cycles of sleep. And to make matters worse, a lot of folks with fibromyalgia also suffer from overlapping sleep disorders, like restless leg syndrome or sleep apnea. Their bodies simply cannot recharge. Which brings us to a highly specific and incredibly frustrating symptom, fibrofog. When your brain is constantly processing pain signals and you aren't getting restorative sleep, well, your cognitive functions take a massive hit. Fibrofog creates intense difficulties in paying attention, focusing on simple mental tasks, or processing new info. Sufferers might forget what they were talking about mid-sentence or just lose their train of thought entirely. It can make a standard day at the office or even just managing a household feel almost impossible.
Now, what's really interesting to see here is that fibromyalgia rarely travels alone. There is a complex web of conditions attached to it. On the physical side, patients frequently deal with irritable bowel syndrome, TMJ jaw pain, intense migraines, and even painful bladder syndrome. On the psychological and fatigue side, we see incredibly high rates of anxiety and depression, chronic fatigue syndrome, and even links to post-COVID syndrome. The sheer volume of co-occurring conditions tells us that fibromyalgia is this massive, systemic burden attacking the patient's well-being from multiple angles all at once.
Section 4. The Origin Story, covering triggers and risk factors.
While there isn't one single cause, researchers have pinpointed a powerful combination of risk factors and triggers. Genetics definitely play a major role. If a parent or sibling has it, you're more likely to develop it yourself. We also know it's far more common in those assigned female at birth, though it absolutely affects men and children too. Having underlying conditions like lupus or osteoarthritis bumps up the risk. But often, the actual onset of symptoms is sparked by a specific triggering event. This could be a severe infection, a major physical trauma, like a car accident, or even a prolonged period of intense emotional stress. Sometimes it builds up gradually, but very often, one major shock to the system is all it takes to flip that neurological switch.
Section 5. Management, empathy, and support.
Because there currently is no cure, the goal is highly strategic management. It's a multi-layered approach. Doctors might prescribe specific medications to help regulate those brain chemicals and reduce pain. But lifestyle changes are just as critical. Gentle, consistent exercise can surprisingly help, along with talk therapy to manage the heavy mental health toll. Stress reduction techniques are vital. Patients also have to learn the art of pacing, not overdoing it on the good days so they don't crash hard on the bad ones. And finally, strict sleep hygiene is essential to try and coax the brain into a restorative state. Honestly, it's basically a full-time job just managing the symptoms.
So the crucial point is this: what triggers fibromyalgia flares? Stress. That is exactly why the vital role of loved ones cannot be overstated. When family, friends, and colleagues offer validation, genuine empathy, and active support, they are actively reducing the patient's stress levels. Believing someone when they say they're in pain, even when they look perfectly fine, is for sure one of the most powerful forms of medicine out there.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Fibromyalgia might be invisible, but the people living with it aren't. There are family members, our friends, and our coworkers. So now that you understand the science, the diagnostic hurdles, and their daily reality, how can you help change the narrative? I challenge you to take the knowledge from this explainer and use it to support those who might be suffering silently. Use it to help end the stigma. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this vital topic. Keep learning, keep questioning, and above all, keep supporting one another.